What is up, citizens? It is Dillygaff Nation here. I'm going to tell you a story of how I got kicked out of camp whenever I was in 6th grade. Mainly because this is a 2-hour drive and I've done nothing but listen to music. And I made this drive like 6 times. And let's go over how I got kicked out of camp. So, in 6th grade, I was living in Korea with my family because we were stationed there. At the time, I was a Boy Scout, and we went camping regularly and stuff like that. I think I was first class. Yeah, I had to have been first class because this was my initiation into the Order of the Arrow. It was the night of the tap out. But in Korea, there are feral dogs and feral cats everywhere. That didn't really fly with me, and it's probably understandable why. I knew that we were going to a Korean campsite, and they don't have zippers on their tents. They're like giant clown tents, like circus tents. They're basically that, where there's 2 flaps that go over top of each other, and that's the closure for your tent. That was fine, except for the kids brought food with them. And this had happened before, where somebody brought food, and then we had animals wander through our campsite. And I was like, you know what? This time I'm gonna be prepared. I looked around my room trying to find things. Like, I had knives and stuff, but I didn't want to get close to it because if it scratched me, cat scratch fever, other diseases that could rise up from being bitten or scratched by this animal. So I was like, you know what? I have these airsoft guns. I'm gonna bring one of my airsoft guns with me. And that plan worked great. So I packed it in my bag and we made it to the campsite and stuff, and everything was good. Everything was going great until I started unpacking for that night. And one of the other boys saw that I had an airsoft gun. He was like, yo, can I see it? Can I do X, Y, and Z with it? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. They were very inconsequential things. He was just walking around with it tucked in his pants, you know, like a gangster. But he wasn't really. He was a little white boy. So he had the gun, and he was walking around with it, showing it off to people, which was stupid to do in the first place. But there was no harm, no foul. Nobody was getting hurt. But that night, he still had the gun, and he was making dumb decisions with it. And this is where I started to get in trouble. So he, at night, pulled out the airsoft gun and started shooting people while they were sleeping. So they were in sleeping bags, so he was shooting the sleeping bags, so it didn't hurt much. But that was a pretty powerful airsoft gun because we bought it in Korea, which they don't have the regulations that we do on our essentially game guns. The FPS on it was much higher than would be allowed in the United States for an airsoft gun. And these weren't pellet guns. They weren't gonna break skin. They were the plastic BBs. So it wasn't like it was gonna hurt a lot. I had shot myself point blank in the foot with it before, and that hurt, but I was point blank and I was shooting my bare foot. So he started shooting this one kid while he was in his sleeping bag, and it just got ugly from there because he was doing it at a long distance, and then he started moving closer to the kid, and eventually the kid grabbed the gun and broke the gun off, broke the barrel and the chamber of the gun off. So all that was left was the handle. The kid who had borrowed the gun from me was freaking out. He was like, oh my god, dude, I'm so sorry. I didn't think you would do that. And I was like, you're an idiot for shooting him in the first place. You're going to get us in so much trouble. And so we tried to put the gun back together and hide it. But then I was like, well, shit, it won't go back together. So I did the next best thing. I took the barrel of the gun outside and threw it as far as I could over the top of the tent and into the woods. Well, that was the end of the night. Everybody settled down, everybody went to sleep. In the morning, though, that's when it got real hairy, because the kid who was getting shot said, "Hey, I was getting shot last night," to our scoutmaster at the time. And our scoutmaster was like, I guess they like went around questioning to figure out who had information about this this like plastic gun, and people were like, "Yeah, I saw Ashton with it." I was like, "Oh crap." So then he asked me what I did with like the barrel of it or whatever, and I was like, "Oh, I just threw it over the back of it because I knew we weren't supposed to have it." You know, like a liar. So our scoutmaster disappeared for like 30 minutes to an hour. And we were eating breakfast, like we made breakfast, we fixed everything up, and we were cleaning up. And then he called us all over into a circle. He had the airsoft gun barrel in his hand. And it was like, "Does anybody know who this belongs to?" And like, I really don't like getting other people in trouble. So usually I will take the bullet for things. And this time, I did too. So I was like, "Yeah, it's mine." And then they questioned like why I wanted to bring it. I was like, "Yo, those feral cats." Actually, somebody brought Burger King in there, so I was almost justified. And the cats visited later that night after the gun was broken. What are the odds? They were like, "Okay, we need to talk to the camp master and see what he wants to do about this." And I was like, "Fine, whatever." They were gonna let me stay, but then they were like, "Yeah, but it's against BSA regulations, yada yada yada." And I was like, "Whatever, just like make a decision." So then the decision was made that I had to go home. We lived 45 minutes from this campsite. I'm pretty sure my mom made it there in about 25 minutes whenever she got the call. She was furious. She was like, "I know that you're not the only one that did this." And then they started interrogating me, and then they started interrogating the other scouts. So by the end of that day, it was me and 2 other people who ended up going home. I thought that we were gonna ride in a car home. No. My mom made us walk all the way to the Hall of Justice, which was like 10 or 15 miles away, to basically like walk penance. But then that wasn't it. We also had to sleep outside because we were supposed to go camping for the full weekend, and she was making sure we went camping for the full weekend. Airsoft gun used against other kid told on us, tried to hide evidence was found, gave myself up, had to walk to Hall of Justice, and then we went home and went camping for the rest of the weekend. But it was not fun. None of that was fun. I think that was probably the most trouble I've ever been in my like whole life, which is pretty sad. But I'm sure that I'm bound to be in more trouble in the future. Like, it'll be great. I think I'll start doing more of these stories because I have a bunch of like little snippets that you need to know about me to like fully know my character and my personality. Anyway, that's it for now. I forgot what I do to sign out. So make sure to hit that like button and subscribe, and I'm going to finish driving home. Deuces.